class before this one.
Yes.
And yeah,
Yes.
we should be hitting each other by now instead of me still talking about how to hit.
So what I adopted, just for very quick, is I call it the 3-minute rule. I should be able to teach you a technique. You should be able to play it back for me. If I can't do it in 3 minutes, then I can't teach it.
That's Mestre Raphael, exactly. But I should spend 1 minute to talk about a thing, and we should do it for no less than 3.
You're going to play it back.
Yeah. And if you can't do it by then, I
failed as a teacher.
Right.
It's my failing, not the student. There's no.
Could I borrow a pen?
Because I need to mark this real quick. How much actual time do we have for? Not much.
Negative 3 minutes.
Cool. Okay, I'm stepping out and grabbing water real quick. And then on to the next one. Excellent. Done.
It's always fascinating to take the fighting classes and help out at these.
If I had I don't have that, I guess, responsibility yet.
I took it as a dependent who's looking for an advocate.
Fair.
That's where mine started. Like I
And
said, you'll get
it
back
never
to-
hurts to understand how the process works.
Yeah, but like that was kind of where I was in the.
It was between this and that
Did
one.
I tell you the story at the end, North Carolina, with the
Be more
dude?
relevant.
So some of the time we're gonna-
Yeah. Let's say, I've heard this story, but I wasn't sure if it was yours or, because a few people have done that.
Yeah,
Because they go to his house.
they stopped doing that. I think Gen Con insurance made. Yeah, we don't want
Cool, mostly familiar faces. I like to see that. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Liu. So good to see you.
Yes.
I think
It's
we're just
on and
continuing
live.
to the last one.
Technically, it's a separate class.
Okay, cool. Just to throw my credentials around a little bit, I've been a member of the Middle Kingdom and fighting for 15 years now. I am a member of the Order of the Bronze Ring. I have raised a member of the Order of Bronze Ring from 0 to getting her Bronze Ring in less than 5 years. That is not entirely my accomplishment. Maeve is a machine. Yeah, but I do take a little bit of credit and I do take a little bit of pride in how I teach. And one thing I have noticed about my experience in the SCA, wherever I've been, mostly around the middle, but I have some experience in Alpha Mark, a little bit in Kaid, like 4 days in Kaid, but Protero War is awesome, by the way. If you get a chance to go out there, Protero War is amazing. We are especially bad at teaching intermediate fencers. That like they have a reasonable grasp of the fundamentals. So what I mean by intermediate, they'll act in their own time. There's a little thinking time when they're presented with a fencing dilemma. Like you don't have to instruct them through every little thing for a drill. You can go defeat this, and they should be able to do it without and working through it 3 or 4 times before something works. They should just, well, but when you reach for me, I'm going to come out to you and stab you in the face. Cool. Hi, that was a bunch of jargon, and if it doesn't make sense, take my first class. This person is comfortable in their footwork. They are fairly confident in asking for fights in and around practice, the pickup list at an event. And you have to take them somewhat seriously on the list. It's just getting a gauge for what do I mean by the intermediate fencer? And this is the person that is often left behind. We're pretty good at making brand new people safe. We are pretty okay at teaching brand new people all the fundamental stuff. And they kind of reach a point where they plateau because we don't really know how to teach that intermediate level. We kind of leave structured class time behind after 8, 10 weeks or whatever, and we throw them into sparring. And that's why they're here. And I 100% agree, like, get them fighting as early as possible because that's why they're here and we need them to have fun. Otherwise, they're not going to come back. There are very few people who are going to show up and want their entire practice to be nothing but drills. I don't want my practice to involve any drills. I hate drills. Drills tire me out. My shoulder gets absolutely destroyed of holding guard there for 5 minutes while somebody stabs me in the face. It's exhausting. Doing less than fighting is exhausting. It's weird. But the student will get to a point where we kind of let them go off and fight it out, and we kind of hope they Super Saiyan their way through nearly dying and getting better. And that's a disservice to the people who are capable of advancing at a higher pace than they currently are. Teaching and coaching are two different things. Intermediate fencers need coaching as much as they need teaching. Teaching is imparting a new skill or expanding and recombining existing skills. Coaching is focused improvement of extant abilities, correction of errors, maintenance of fundamentals, exploiting strengths, and minimizing weaknesses. Sounds like a lot, and it kind of is. As a coach and as a teacher, this applies to beginners too, but to an intermediate fencer, get hit. Your students need to feel success in their training. Set them up to use the skills they're working on to land a touch. This can be in drills, sparring, a plastron session. If you don't know what a plastron session is as a fencer, like, it is a classical and or modern training format where you stand there and without words, you give them visual coaching cues. And the point is that it accelerates till almost fighting them. But they're scoring the touch. You are just giving them situations that they have to get themselves into and out of successfully. And you get hit a lot. And it's called a plastron session because you should be wearing a coach's plastron because you get hit a lot and you will get bruised. If you have your heavy fencing jacket, even though we have changed the rules and you plan on doing this, consider putting that back on. If you are a crossover and you have a hard suit that will cover your armpit-ish, cover that right flank where you should be getting hit, put that on and learn how to do this with your student. You can find videos of how to do plastron sessions on several YouTube channels. There's one from a guy in Melbourne that teaches both Fabris and Mosh. That teaches both Fabris and Tybalt kind of as a unified system, which weirds me out, but he's right. But the point is, if your student is doing the thing right, they deserve to get the hit. Because if you go out there and you're like, okay, I'm gonna fight you and I'm gonna stay that just above you. That thing we do all the time, we're like, okay, you're new, I'm gonna stay just out of reach and see if you can work it out. 70–80% of the time, they're not working it out. You're just out of reach. Sometimes your student has that flash of inspiration. They do something unexpected and they get the hit, and that feels really good. Imagine how good their training session feels to them when 90% of the time they are scoring that hit in a challenge you present to them that isn't, I'm trying to hit you too. your students get touch starved, literally touch starved. That the need to reach out and hit someone. And God forbid you come up in a fencing environment where everybody is insanely good and they don't know how to coach. Because you might be getting better in some ways. Your reaction time will certainly become incredible when you're dodging Vinda's headshots all the time. But it doesn't teach you how to get better at too much else. At least not fast enough. Where we begin. Your student's journey is really at a point where they need to adopt or develop a system rather than a collection of moves that they know. This is the drum that I beat, sort of like the horse beating earlier. I strongly advise encouraging your students to read the source materials. Go read Capoferro. Go read, okay, maybe not Tybalt. Go read Fabris.
Do you like watching paint dry?
Yes. Tybalt is a fantastic resource, but it is huge. But read the source material. It doesn't have to be the same book you're studying. If they're not interested in it, fine. Like, you're there to help them you're there to help make them a better fencer, not a copy of you. The most important part is having a pedagogy that reinforces the basic principles and presents an approach to solve problems successfully, rather than fencing tricks. You have a system. You have a method of thinking about fencing that you can apply to what you see across from you. And you can turn that into a road to success without ever having been taught how exactly to deal with that particular situation. You can access the system and know how you can win. You won't always. I wish, and knowing Fabris as well as I did, I could walk over any of us, let's face it, R2, Miguel, Kai, Anton. I have never beaten Anton in a situation where it matters. Not once. I can quote more books than he can. But he has a functional system that works. Regardless of how an individual's teachers fight, what book they're reading, students should start to develop an individual expression of that system. Maeve's Fabris does not look anything like my Fabris, but it's straight out of the book. She prefers a different guard. She prefers a different application of her timing. And she is a menace up close in a way that I cannot be. I am absolutely lethal at a mid-range. If you give me just a nudge of time at mid to extreme range, it's over. Maeve, up here, I don't know how she does it. She can task saturate. She can make anybody panic. Both are Fabris. Both are straight out of the book. They're the exact same rules. She just takes different applications. And that's how I know that my teachings worked. Because she took what I taught her and she made it hers. To go back to the Bruce Lee thing from my previous class, martial art is the art of expressing oneself with the human body. She's taken her preferences, she has turned it, the skills I taught her, and she's turned it into an expression of her. And that is a beautiful thing, and that's what we want to see beginning to develop in our intermediate students. They're latching on to the kind of fencer they want to be and working toward that. The important one, okay, this is all important. Student needs your time. Sometimes it means spending less time with the brand new people. That's fine. There's almost always going to be someone else at your practice who can take over early classes once in a while. It sometimes also means that you as a teacher spend less time fighting the people you really want to fight. But if you're working from a functional system and you have a common vocabulary with your student, you can more rapidly communicate coaching ideas. You refer to the structure of your system rather than giving every little detail of the answer. I shouldn't have to tell somebody how to defeat an attack on the inside line. As a super basic example, and if I have to remind you, turn to fourth guard. I don't have to show you what a fourth is. I have that common vocabulary with my student that refers to our system. Refining physical skills is really the key component to coaching. The key goal of coaching, not necessarily teaching. Break down, retrain, correcting individual motions, applications of techniques. These things require careful observation on the part of the coach. This is where you have to train yourself to be able to train your student. There are a lot of really good fencers in the SCA. That does not mean that they're going to be good teachers, and that doesn't mean they're capable of coaching at all. This is a skill on its own. If you observe something that's consistently not working, apply more pressure over the course of a few passes with the goal of figuring out exactly how you're exploiting that weakness in your student. So you identify precisely where the fault was. They can then consistently repeat the correct form while you slowly ramp the pressure back up. Make it slightly more antagonistic. You're a little more solid in your guard when you approach whatever it is. Make it harder and harder for them to do the same thing and succeed until it's like you're fighting. The goal is consistent result, not a perfect repetition of the exact same movement. A fight is a dynamic thing. A drill is not. Drills are of limited use. They really, really are. They are good for teaching. They are good for learning some things about timing and about distance, all those fundamental concepts in fencing that we all know a ton about. And we can quote 7 different books on tempo, right? Yeah. There are probably 7 different books written just on the tempo of fencing, and it's a complicated skill. But if you want to improve your students' understanding, you've got to figure out where it's going wrong. You've got to figure out how to apply pressure under the correct conditions while they're doing it right until it gets harder and harder for them up to a reasonably realistic situation. Not quite. You're going to go all out and see if they get it this last time. Odds are they won't. And then they're going to feel like crap because they didn't succeed. I said it before in the other video. So yeah, my phone crew over here loves that I keep talking to the camera. your students need to succeed in learning a skill. And you have nothing more to prove. The expectations on a student at this level is kind of some of the hard things you have to ask of them. Expect to lose sometimes. I lost a lot. I lost a lot. And it can weigh on your mind, especially when you think you should have been able to win. You'll get there. You're working on rebuilding, breaking bad habits, and you're finding your own art of defense. If you take your progress seriously and you are invested in your own progress, the wins will come. And they will come at the right time. When you are comfortable, you have solidified yourself in your expression of your art, you are going to start seeing the results you're looking for on the list, not just in training.
You didn't mention investing. How much do you recommend they should invest?
As much as they are mentally and socially comfortable with. Honestly, like if they can give an extra 2 hours a week, either private time with you or an extra 2 hours a week doing whatever, working out even, if their conditioning is part of the issue. There's a more complete answer to that a little later in the class, but like I can't say you are not going to get better unless you put 10 hours more a week than your local practice. You're not going to get better unless you put 20 hours more a week. Like you need to give up TV and you need to do lunches all night instead. No. But hi, Logos. As a student, you can be selfish about some things at this stage in your progress. Spend your practice time in service of your goals. Don't let volunteering be the thing that holds you back from the time you need with a sword in your hand. Special thanks to Miguel for that particular little gem of a quote right there. We have a bad habit, especially with our non-male fencers, but a bad habit in general. We tell people that to get awards in the SCA, to be recognized for your fencing, it is more about being just a good fencer. And I agree. We should not be giving away prizes to jerks. And we tell people that part of that being part of the community is volunteering, is helping out. And marshaling is an easy way to do that. It is a very visible way to do that. And then this person gets stuck at the list table for the next 15 events doing the service component. They think they owe their friends to get that award recommendation. And they're not spending their time fencing.
Service comes in many forms. It doesn't have to be just to the rapier community. There's a whole SCA out there where you can provide service outside of tournaments and practices.
I 100% agree.
That's a sticky wicket to get stuck in service, and anyone can get stuck in that wicket.
And then what happens? Oh, well, her service is great. She's been marshalling and she's been list mistressing for the last year. Where's her prowess at? Well, I haven't seen her on the field. Well, you told her to be a list mistress for the last year. Yeah.
I had to start going with swimming griffin practices to get fight time in.
Mm-hmm. So you can be selfish about your fight time. You can be selfish about your training time to some extent. Like demand that you get what you want out of this hobby. And if that's time stabbing your friends in the face, take that time stabbing your friends in the face.
I want their faces to say pretty.
That's why we wear masks.
Yeah.
There you go. Stab them in the heart instead.
Exactly.
Exactly.
As a student, it is important to visualize. Think about fencing every day. Not just doing it in practice, but if you can't spend 5-10 minutes doing the actual thing. Think about the best fencer you know and how and why they succeed. And as a student, think about the least successful fencer you know and what you would teach them the next time you meet. Learning to teach makes you a better fencer.
Yes.
Reread that text, that plate from the book that hasn't made any sense to you the last 15 times you've tried it. Burn the thinking of swordplay into your brain as a student. If you want to succeed in this, it needs to be a part of your thinking. It doesn't have to be 100% of your thinking. I can turn this off, believe it or not. Most people only see me in rapier mode, but I can turn this off.
I'm gonna point out that, like he talked about reading. YouTube is a great source.
Yes.
There are audiobooks available that you can look at, but there are things other than just straight reading for those who can't, who don't have time. Like I don't have time to read, but I have time to listen to audiobooks. I have time to watch YouTube videos because I'm like usually like making dinner, but I can watch YouTube videos while I'm making dinner. That type of thing. There are things that you can do while doing other things like that are available, and we can help you find resources like that. But like there are other things that you can like search, just Fabris, and while you're gonna find things like Febreze, and you know, you're gonna come up with all sorts of weird things at first. Like soon you'll be able to be like, okay, so I know this channel is really, really good, and like you'll be able to narrow it down to a few more things and be a bit more exact in your searching.
Access the source material, even if it's not in writing. Access some other fencers. But just
highly recommend looking at on the YouTube for some of the plate stuff, because I couldn't understand the plates until I saw some of the YouTube stuff.
Chicago Swordplay Guild and their entire numbered set of, or is that Chicago or is that?
Chicago Swordplay Guild.
Yeah.
So somebody out there that's done like an entire number set of all the plates from Fabris just as individual. Yeah, I love that video series. But practice something more than once a week. You don't have to travel to outside practices.
Although that's
all
cool
the time.
to do.
That is a super good thing to do. But if it is not an option to you, don't feel like, well, that's the thing that's going to hold me back. I can't do this. Repeat your fundamental skills at home. By this point, you should know how to do all of those things without needing your coach to correct every little tiny bit. You can do your 10, your 50, your 20 lunges and not worry about a lot of bad habits sneaking in the course of a week.
Again, never be afraid to work on your footwork.
But do something for 20 or 30 minutes a few times a week outside of just going to your local practice. Like that once a week is not enough. That's the baseline of the base of the point. Going from expectations of the student on a student's needs. Outside the scope of physical and intellectual skills, students have physiological and psychological needs. It is imperative, first, above all, that the student feels safe in their learning environment. I should not have to explain this further to all the degrees of safe in every capacity. Cool. I'm gonna not beat that horse any harder. Student needs to remain hydrated. They need to rest when they need to. They need to have their liberty to eat when they need to be recognized. They should not be shamed for choosing to take care of themselves in a situation where others would press on. This goes, again, referencing other material I teach. Do not demean your students. Like a little gentle ribbing and joking back and forth is one thing. But we are not drill sergeants. Student needs the freedom to make decisions about what sort of fencer they want to be. You should not be telling every single one of your students that they can only learn mire, that they have to fight with sword and buckler because that's what you're good at, that they need to look exactly like you. We are teaching systems. We are not teaching collections of moves. And a student needs to trust their coach and their teacher. I shouldn't have to go on about that any farther either. There are several things you can do to break your students' trust. Avoid them at all costs. Regularly demeaning them. Demeaning them at all. Making them feel like their training is not effective. By teaching them something, having them do it, and then immediately defeating them. How many times have I had that happen to me? More than enough. And it feels absolutely awful. And it makes you wonder why you were learning that thing. Because you're just being taught immediately after, it doesn't work. And why, if I did that to somebody, I should not expect them to trust me. Coach and teacher responsibilities following student needs. You need to assess and attend to your student needs. This is your primary job as a coach, assessing and attending to your student needs. Those can be the training needs, the immediate mechanical, like pull your elbow down. They can be psychological, like your student is having a bad day, they have dropped their mask in the middle of the floor, they have walked out of the building. It is your job as the coach and the teacher to take care of that. That does not mean go chase them down, but it means know your student and know what they need. At this level, your student needs a friend at every point. They need somebody who understands them, and it's your responsibility to be that person in this context. So you'll pick up their mask, you'll get it off the list, you'll go bring them water. You'll tell whoever's about to follow them, nope, give them 10 minutes and then I'll go talk to them. Whatever it is, get to know your student well enough that you can handle those situations. Mentor needs to be honest in their assessments and the material you offer. I talk about positive praise, student successes a lot. And I talk about avoiding negative correction a lot. And for recap, avoiding negative correction, I mean by try to avoid using phrases like your shoulder's wrong, your hips are wrong, and instead pivot your hips a little bit more towards your target. That is a positive correction. That is not just telling your student that they have failed and they have screwed up, but it is showing your student where the road to improvement is. And they'll be like, oh, okay, yeah. 9 times out of 10, they will respond much more positively than to be told, hey, your hand's wrong. Again, we can joke like that with some people. I'm not above humor here. Believe it or not, I'm not above humor here. But these are important and very serious points. And you need to be honest in the material you offer. That means that you need to show them that this works. You need to let them believe that this works in the context you're giving it to them. They know you can beat them. That's probably why they chose you. They want to get better. They want to be like you. I'm not going to start singing. I saw it in your face.
Away we go.
But also, if you don't know the answer to a question, you don't know the answer to whatever puzzle has come up and why something isn't working. Like, you need to be honest and tell them, I don't have that information. If you're a good Scadian and you know how to network, you probably know somebody who does have that information. This is what we do best. We crowdsource information. We crowdsource medieval knowledge. Hey, so I do not know this particular thing about, okay, I don't know anything about German fencing. I know who does. And I can send you straight to Peter Grau or Miguel or Tedesco or whoever. Hey, look, there's a whole list of people like right there. If I didn't know a thing, know somebody who knows the thing. Try to find out for them who knows the thing. If you don't make things up that may or may not work for them. On the final teacher coach responsibility, this is the most important thing of all of this above or just beneath your students' physical and psychological safety. A mentor needs to check their ego when they're working with a student. Don't take them out just after teaching them a thing. And you know they're going to use it. You know they want to use this thing on you or on anybody and everybody. Like, hey, go play with this. Don't crush them for it. Like, don't go out, okay, like, now it's time to fight you, my hardest. That a lot of us do this, that stay like 1 to 10%, however we gauge it, above a student, even if they're not yours, just enough to push them. Take that down a little bit. Try to fight at your student's level. Try to like when you're sparring. Tournament time, that's a completely different story. Like, that is a competition. You are out there to show your best, and I should not expect anybody to not show their best just because there are less experienced students in the same tournament. Take those people out for pickups later, turn it down a little bit, let them have fun with the fight. But especially with your own students, you need to take that down even a little bit more. They need to succeed for real, absolutely succeed for real against a larger version of you. Your movements are larger, your times are larger, your defenses are larger. Not necessarily, oh, my disengage has become out of the shoulder. But it can become that slow, smooth movement that you train doing in the beginning, so they can see it, so they can keep up with it to their level. And hey, this helps you too, because you're not doing things in a panic. You're doing things that feel at a comfortable, familiar pace for both of you. And you will both improve. Nothing has made me a better fencer than the last 2 years that I have spent like focused teaching direct students. For the prepared material, that's all I've got. So I mean, if anything, if anybody has anything they want to bring up, to discuss, questions, comments, eggs to throw at me.
Marquette?
How can we motivate people who may have authorized up to a year ago to volunteer for things like marshals?
I wish I had a prepared answer for that. I have noticed that this is somewhat a group-to-group problem. Some groups have no trouble getting people into marshal. And the way that has been successful for my group is that we tell them that the more marshals there are, the faster everything gets done at events. That we don't have to hunt around to find marshals to do authorizations. Because we've got 15, 20, 25 of them standing there on the sidelines while authorizations are supposed to be going on. We can grab another 2 or 3 pairs of people. And we need to keep that pool going. Training as a fencing marshal is very different than training as an armored marshal. I understand that they have a different time commitment that they expect. And I cannot really speak to their process, to their numbers, their commitment in general. But for rapier, it is not asking too much, I believe, to take some time out of a few events to make sure that you run the list table for a tournament. Still getting pickups after, especially if it's your local group. Really, like after your first couple of years, you should be working your local group's events, not fighting your local tournament. Unless there's literally nothing else for you to do because you have so many volunteers, because it just makes the SCA run smoother. It makes the SCA run smoother. And if it's difficult to impress that upon people, I honestly don't understand like how we keep an SCA if that's the relevant attitude. How do we motivate them? If there's no event, if there's no tournament, if there's no authorizations to happen because there are no marshals, I think that should be motivation enough.
God, I'm just working the hell out of them.
They have every fencer is supposed to be inspected at the beginning of every event, and that includes practices.
Mm-hmm.
So you look at your brand new authorized fencer and you say, go inspect him. Oh, he's a marshal.
Yeah.
Yep, he's a marshal, but he still has to be inspected. And if he's the only marshal in the room, he can't inspect himself.
Yep. Right. Deputy Constellation Regional.
Right.
Right here. Yeah, I don't get to inspect myself. I can inspect my weapons because I can look at them.
Right.
I don't get to inspect my own gear. I'm still gonna have somebody. do
So that sort of small little thing right at the beginning,
learn to do it so stuff
Yeah.
happens.
Right.
It's
just,
I like, I'm not a good motivator in that case, I guess.
I think the best
Because of-
motivator is to just lead by example. Like one of the things in our shire, we actually have almost like we have too many marshals, if that's the case.
we have
can be.
we have an excess over need for certain.
And I think a lot of that is our marshals, they all are like, look, because we are all here, we only have to do anything like, we barely inspect one person at each practice because there's so many of us. We inspect each other and that's it. Like, we inspect each other and then one other person.
Yeah,
Like-
pretty much. Like it's almost not a process because all but like our brand newest fencers are marshals or MITs.
if you have somebody who's a new fencer, you just say, go do some inspection.
Yeah.
Well, but then I can't fence. Sorry, nobody can fence until everybody's inspected.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes you have to be put a little screw in.
Yeah. You really do need to like just lay it out bluntly. It's like, this is how things in the SCA
Right.
happen. We are all volunteers. Please give some of your time to your local group to make things run smoothly. Another one of those horses we need to beat sometimes, and it's an unfortunate thing to have to say to somebody, but like, hey, gotta work at this too.
So one of the issues we've had with getting marshals in our group is that we have a fair number of folks that are a bit younger and trying to make budgets manage out of 1, 2, 3, 8 jobs. And being a paid member can be a challenge for some of our newer
I
fighters.
100% agree that that is a barrier that I don't think we will get around because insurance. Because because the lawyers are involved in what we do
Right.
as fighters.
But they can still do at practices inspections. Now, it won't count as.
They can learn how to do an
Yeah, they
inspection.
can learn how to do
They can't get
inspection.
signatures for it.
Right,
They can't actually pass somebody on the list.
but they can still,
Learn the skills.
Am
Learn the
I
skill.
incorrect? Aren't you required to have paid
Right?
To be a marshal,
No.
no, we are no longer a pay to play,
membership? No.
but you have to be a member to
To be
be
an
hold an
officer.
office.
Right.
But no, we got rid of membership for combat 6-7 years ago.
Right.
4 or 5
It's
years
more
ago.
recent than that.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like 4 or 5
There's another one. Is
years, yeah.
MIT considered an office or is it an actual?
yes,
It's
no,
an
it's
office.
considered.
It's at large.
Yeah, yeah. You are a marshal at large. You are an officer in the SCA, so you must have a membership.
Stream safety officer,
Yeah.
if I understood correctly.
Right.
You're not a group officer.
Right.
You might not be on the roster somewhere, but you're on Isabel's roster as
Right, as a marshal.
as a marshal.
As
So
an
you're
MIT.
on the corporate role as a safety officer
officer.
somewhere in the
Right.
SCA. Yeah, the budget thing is
Well, I mean, and
help
something to
them
think
out
about.
if you can. If you're looking at a student and going, hey, that $45 a year, like that's, I don't know what ramen costs for a college student at this point, but that's probably quite a decent part of their budget. If you've got that and like they're really looking at being a marshal, like find a way to sneak it to them if it's not
Or-
going to embarrass you or them or their friends. Like help. This is what we do is we help each other, right?
We do fundraisers
Yeah.
for all sorts of stuff.
Scholarships.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So everybody throws a buck in every practice. And then we draw straws. I mean, and I'm doing this off the top of my head.
It's not an uncommon thing for someone's first piece of equipment or even first full kit of equipment to be secondhand,
Right,
either donated or bought fairly cheap. We sponsor people all the time with
Right.
equipment. It's nothing wrong with a couple people getting together and sponsoring a new member.
right.
And that's not necessarily the problem, but.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it is a problem. It is not necessarily the sole problem.
But
Yes.
if,
That's not the problem you're having, that's the problem.
but if
But it could
that's,
show up as reluctance to become
become a marshal.
But if that's a regular thing in your group, these reluctant people who don't want to be marshals might say, everybody else here is pitching in. Why aren't I pitching in?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just,
Just modeling that everybody is doing something.
right.
I want to find something that I can do that's within my capacity.
Right.
See, Gabriel's gonna be marshal of, not this Christmas party, the next one, correct?
Helping your wife this Christmas tourney, and I'm more than willing to do it next Christmas tourney.
Because she's been the marshal at that tourney for 20 plus years.
As long and longer than I've been doing this, yeah.
And plus, her and I have been the main marshals in Flame for a long time, with the exception of Dan. Dan says he won't do the marshal thing anymore because he was so upset about the pay to play. And he has his principles and he's sticking to it.
I mean, I know people who still won't pick it up after the incident with the marshal being punished for doing his job at fencing.
I thought that was
Golf course.
Or golf course, yeah.
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 I personally, as a marshal, longtime marshal, seeing as I'm one of the people in the room that started this thing, I won't punish people in this room for refusing to be a marshal because of that. I don't think that's
right. I 100% agree. It is a less required criteria for looking at somebody for advancement.
I guess in my mind, we briefly talked about this earlier. There are other ways to do service than marshaling. Not only to the SCA in general, but specifically to the rapier community, than just by marshaling. And I guess my biggest question is, what service do you have going on there? And is that service active or is it inactive?
You're talking to me?
Yes, I am talking to you. Sorry.
I think we're on different pages here. Camille and I have been the marshals.
And has that been the only service that you've seen, like in?
Oh no, we do other stuff.
You're in Flame, correct?
Yes, we're in Flame, and now we've gotten a pretty good handful of fencers.
Well,
and we have some that have been authorized for about a year now.
What you do
and we
is
want them to pick up and take over for Camilla or I, so we can have a break after so 25 years.
Frankly, tell them, hey, I've been doing this for 25 years.
Right.
I am done. If you want fencing to still happen in the Shire, you guys should become marshals.
Somebody needs
We're not going to pull that card, but we do want someone to step up.
But it's the truth, isn't it?
Lysistrata.
One of us will do it rather than let it fall through the cracks.
Well, yeah, but still.
But
You don't have to know that,
so
though.
I understand that is your intent. But knock on wood, like something horrible happens.
Yeah.
And suddenly the only two marshals Flame has had are
Gone.
not available for any length of time or permanently. I forbid that happen to either of you. I love you both. You should let your people know that they should be prepared with backups, with it is not hard to be a group marshal. It is not hard to be a group marshal. You spend a few events doing a little bit of work and you still get to go play. It is not, I have given up my next 6 months worth of events to getting this paperwork done. You spend a few events doing a little bit of work, learning how things are done.
Right.
And then every 3 months you fill out a Google form and that's your report. It is not difficult.
Oh yeah, especially not since they switched to that Google form.
It is a super low intensity job.
I can understand your principles, but pull a Lysistrata on them and say, we're not going to be here next week. Who's going to be marshal?
Yeah. I mean, look at them and say, we're not going to be here forever. Who's going to be marshal?
Right.
Literally, I would take a vacation and be like, hey,
Yeah, tell
Yeah,
them,
we're going on vacation, guys.
yeah, tell them, we're gonna be on vacation in 3 months. We're going on vacation for 2 weeks, 3 months from now. We need we need to know who's gonna step up 3 months from now when we're away for 2 weeks.
When no other marshal is available, and MIT can do the job at a practice.
With
That's right.
permission from regional for a month.
Right.
You would.
I can't do it for Flame. They're South Oaken.
Mhm.
Yours, South Oakland's Flame Regional, and she comes from
And
practice
you,
fairly regularly.
and you put the word out to the other marshals in the area. Don't volunteer.
Like, I mean, sometimes it's,
Volunteer to teach other people how to do it, how to be marshals.
I'm not gonna drive that
Sign
flame,
off.
right, Chris?
sometimes it feels bad to have to tell people, hey, you're gonna have to pick up your end of things a little bit.
Yeah.
But
I think this is one of
sometimes
those-
you have to
those
tell people
tough
that
love
thing.
things where you have to let it fire under their butts.
If
You have to
the,
grow up someday.
Yeah.
Anybody had suggestions how to motivate?
yeah,
Somebody wants to
if,
example of this situation,
if-
court's starting in a minute.
yeah, if the,
Oh,
crap, I've got court stuff to do. If the nice version of things doesn't work, where you say, hey, so this is how things get done, like, then the reality of the situation kind of just needs to be set in.
Hey, well, hell, we're all straws.
Yeah.
That might work.
Whoever draws the short straw, right?
Or no, whoever draws the short straw doesn't have to be.
Oh.
Thank you for teaching.
Thank you for attending. Thank you for managing the